Clearly, officials here in the United States are keeping a close eye on the situation in Kyrgyzstan, mostly because the country is home to a pivotal U.S. airbase for transporting equipment and troops going to and from Afghanistan. Well, joining me now to talk more about the unrest in Kyrgyzstan and what it could mean for the international community is Ivan Eland, Senior Fellow at the Independent Institute. Ivan, thanks so much for joining us. So first of all, we've been talking a lot about how the situation is going to affect the rest of the world. Many people here in the United States don't know exactly where Kyrgyzstan is or how to spell it, but it's the only country in the world to have a United States and Russian military base over there. How could the unrest over there have further implications for the United States?
Well, the opposition has been against the base, and they would like to close it down because their stated reason is that if the U.S. and Iran got into a war, Kyrgyzstan might be threatened by Iran for having this base. And of course, the Russians and the U.S. have been sort of jockeying for influence there, and the government, which is of course now in turmoil, had wanted to get rid of the base, the U.S. presence as well, but the U.S. managed to put up more cash and that sort of thing and get the base continued. However, this is a very important base for the U.S. because the U.S. Transports a lot of troops and supplies through there to the war in Afghanistan. And in that part of the world, the transportation links into Afghanistan are not that good, and so this is a crucial base for those operations. And the United States is even more dependent on the base because we're going to be putting 30,000 more troops in there, and so this base is even more pivotal than it was. And of course, all this is thrown into chaos because if the opposition does take power, they could shut that down. Of course, perhaps the U.S. could renegotiate again and still keep the base. Sometimes, rhetoric and reality are different when the realities of geopolitics are involved. So it's not clear that the base is going to be denied to the U.S. at this point.
And, obviously there have been a lot of speculations about where President Bakiyev went. Some people have said that perhaps he is on that base that you were just talking about, or that he fled the country from that base. The United States has contacted officials from the Bakiyev administration, and obviously both the United States and Russia have condemned the violence and urged calm in the area. Where do you think the United States stands on this? Are they in support of Bakiyev during all of this turmoil, or is that, can we speculate that?
Well, they might be. It's kind of murky, but, they did renegotiate the base agreement with him, so they do have an interest in his survival. Now, of course, he's been accused of corruption, and of course these high utility bills that people were paying. Apparently, oftentimes economic things spark off rebellions like this. So it's not really clear as to the outcome at this point. But it's possible that the U.S. could have had some role in either negotiating his departure or sheltering him until the winds blow over, all this blows over, and maybe calm is restored. So it seems to be in these types of situations it goes back and forth. So I think it's in doubt as to what's going to happen, not only in Kyrgyzstan but to the U.S. access to the base.
And like I said, the United States and Russia did issue these two statements. Do you think we're going to see any other kinds of action from the United States and Russia in Kyrgyzstan, perhaps any sort of intervention?
Well, I don't necessarily think the Russian and the U.S. interest diverge here. They do to some extent, but I think the U.S. has also negotiated some transportation access to Afghanistan with Russia. So Russia doesn't like the Islamist movement in Pakistan or Afghanistan, and it's their interest to have that under control. And this access to this base for the U.S. helps that to happen. So it's not necessarily clear. Of course, they're both competing for influence in Kyrgyzstan, but on the other hand, Russia does have an interest in seeing the Islamist movement in that part of the world restrained, and the U.S. activities in Afghanistan do have that effect.
Well, it's certainly interesting to see how that unrest can affect the United States from so far away.